So let's tackle product design. So for example here, let's use take it up project. So maybe for example this design masterclass, it attracted you for like there's something you wanted to learn from here, he gave me. So it's like there's certain words that he put in there that once you saw it, you're like, oh, I want to go, or I want to be part of that meeting. See, those are the things I'm trying to talk about, to say, how do we achieve that and then consistently maintain that? So I think we had that in the, is it here still? I hope I didn't delete it. Okay, I deleted it. I needed the poster. Okay. I'll just delete this. And then I'll go to say, Mustafa. Let me see if I can quickly find it. This one. Okay. Okay. All right. I was really hoping it'd be a bit more interactive, just so that we can bounce ideas off each other. Because one thing you'll see in terms of this brand is the consistency in this part, right? The logo positioning. Look at any design. The logo is here, here, and then they also put the like the actual company, because this is a project, and then the actual company is in the bottom here. So these are things I picked. So in terms of branding, I'm already creating that positioning. I've already linked my mind to Take It Up. Say if I ever see a Take It Up project or something coming from diverse solutions, they're going to put the project name on the top left and the actual company at the bottom right. And then we also spoke about that, the grouping, you know. And then remember we gave feedback, and Mustafa took the feedback and added the free training, you know. So that's, as I mentioned, it's iteration, it's improving over time. So in this case, if I was to create a brand guideline, I would have a section called logo positioning. And in this case, I would clearly just state, based off like what I showed you in the Mohoko brand, to say is it here, logo positioning. I would have a section like that for diverse solutions, to say logo positioning. The logo can only ever be on the top here. Let me just take this logo positioning. I'd say this may be the boring part of design, because it's like you're no longer creating visuals, but you're creating the rules for those visuals. So as I mentioned, it's the top left, right? Top left corner, project, then bottom right corner, and then I'll say company. It's just an example, right? And then regardless of communication size or dimension, the logo can only ever be in these two locations. This keeps the logo placement simple because it's making, okay, there. So in this case, I would have this as a brand guideline, and then this as a template in a poster. And then I'll clearly state, say, with a label. So what I'm doing here is going back to this grouping and hierarchy. Let's say, yeah, proximity. I'm applying all these principles again, just as a refresher, right? Because what I'm saying is I'll take this, put it at the bottom, and I'll say posters, and I'll label it. I'll use bold in this case for here, and then I'll also make this bold. This is just one example. And then what else do we communicate with? Posters, and then this is like social media. I would also create a template for social media. So shortcut here, what I'm doing is Control C V to paste. I click on, okay, for me to create posters, the text shortcut T, click, then I write posters. Then I think I mentioned the last time to say if there's anything that's on my page, then I want to find it, I'll find it from the layers. But then if there's anything I want to change about what I'm seeing, it's on the opposite side, which is the design side. So in this case, I want to change the font size, so I'm going to look for typography, grouped here. Everything to do with typography will be found here. Font size is found just below the font. Then I'll click on the, but this is like the weight, bold, extra, so depending on what I want. So in this case I was going for bold. Then same thing here, because this is the title, I want this to stand out. I'm going to change the font weight again to bold. For this, I'm using thin in this case, but we can go with regular. But one thing I'll do is to reduce the font size. So as you can see, they've got predefined scales, but there's certain rules for this as well. I think minimum size in a document is like 12, but then right now, because we're working on like a very large page canvas, I'm going to bring it up a bit just so that it's visible. Yeah. And then that's for posters. And then when it comes to social media, because we don't have an example, I would create one. So for example, there, then I'd put social media, right? So because I don't have an example, let's create one by going to here. It's got a drop down, which you can then select frame, section, slice. So I'm looking for a frame in this case. And as I mentioned, frames are now like a page, a piece of paper for you to work with. And we don't need any of these, but we do need one for social media. And as I mentioned, that's the power of Figma. It's already got these tools put together. So I want to create a Facebook post. See? So that's already our template for Facebook. I'm going to place it here. So it's not that it's invisible. If we go back to our layers, as you can see, it's at the top. So that's why it's hiding this. So for me to be able to find what I'm looking for, I'm using the layers. So logo ideas is the name of the page. So we're going to change this to logo positioning. Yeah. And then this layer is inside logo positioning. I think if you want a visual example, I was using a folder and yeah. So this is what's happening with something like this. It's covering it. So what I'm just trying to do is rearrange the order and bring this to the front. So that happens in terms of layers. If I move something down the layer, it's not going to be visible, but if I move it up, it will then move in front of the next thing. So because there's no space here, I'm going to scale it down. So scaling, you can do it from here, for example, but the shortcut is K. So I'll prefer the shortcut. Or if not, you can find it here, scale. Then I'm going to bring the scale down. So because this is for Facebook, let's see. So it's disappeared, right? But what's happened is that it means the background color. Remember we talked about transparency and opacity. The example I had was like something like this. You can see, but it's like when you add a fill color, pretty much it's like you're taking a page and you giving it something for it to be filled with color. That's what's happening here. So it's like I'm putting white. So it's like this is white and this is white. That's why it just looks as if it's the same thing. So for me to fix that, I'm just going to change the color. So that's called the fill. It fills. Then I'm going to add that. This is just now, we're trying to create a template, right? So as you can see, the power of contrast again is that now we can clearly see one thing and not the other, right? Or we can see now there's two separate things on the page. So social media, I want to keep consistency. That's why I don't want to move it here, but it looks off alignment. So I'm going to push this to the side. So click, I'm holding shift so that I keep this in line. That's how I'm able to do that. Shift and drag is how I'm able to do. And Figma has this alignment, the guides automatically. So because this is for Facebook, let's now zooming is like a pinch or same as any other app. I'm going to switch this to Facebook. So because I want to show hierarchy, I'm going to change the weight to regular, and I'll put this aligned as well. So I'm applying those same principles again. So that's one thing. It's like the more you zoom in, you look at those get solved principles. As you zoom out, same thing's happening again. So it's like a constant thing that it doesn't change, in my opinion. It just becomes like muscle memory. Yeah. So I'm using contrast again so that I can separate the two. But as you can see, these are grouped. So now let's create a template for Facebook. So first things first is I need the logo on the top left based off these, right? So I'm going to create some form of a key. So should I use a rectangle, circle? I'll go with the rectangle in this case, or square. Yeah, because your logo is a bit longer. So I just want to clearly state it. Then I'm going to add some contrast as well. Yeah. And then I'll put the other one on the bottom, right? Same thing as well. So yeah, that's how it show in terms of the brand. But let's say just for visual, so that it aligns with Take It Up, the colors are already present. So I'll use the eyedrop tool in this case to get the blue from there. So the shortcut is the letter I, or I'm gonna go to fill, then click on this tool here, sample color, and I can pull the color from there, right? Just for that. But as you can see, there is not enough contrast. Going back to the principles, I'm going to change this to white so that I can achieve that contrast. Then I want to add text and show this is number one, or number one is tying up with that one, and then Control C V 2. Yeah. So that's one thing. If you can see now, we can literally break down this brand and create a guideline just by looking at a design. So we've started with like logo positioning, but I want you to see how we can move even backwards, find the color, find the font, and create a whole lot of guides. Which now, if you ask me to design a brand, a guideline for, to design something for Take It Up, just by looking at this, I could figure out how to do it. So, which is something I wanted us to attempt, but I want you to see that I'm going to use the guide to do that. So that's the logo positioning, right? Number one matches with one here, and number two matches with number two there. I've just fixed the numbering. The next thing is the font. So Mustafa, what font did you use here? Do you remember the name? But so this goes now to as a designer. The more you do the stuff, you can actually memorize some of the fonts. I'm gonna attempt, but then I doubt I'll get it right. But It looks like Montserrat here, and then yeah, Montserrat. Yeah, but what font did you use?
I used is it Poppins?
Here.
I'm sure you're familiar with that font.
Yes. So it's Poppins across everything?
Yes.
Ah, okay. I was wrong. Okay, so Poppins is a free font. Let's get that in. So this is the primary font. Primary font is Poppins. So right, Poppins. So for example, first to find Poppins in Figma, I'm going to click on Poppins there. I mean on the text I've renamed as Poppins. I'm going to go to typography and then I can search for Poppins. There. So that's now the font he used there and there. So I'm creating now typography, the guidelines for typography. Yeah. Spelling, no suggestions, what's the problem? Okay. What's up with this? Okay, Poppins. And then Poppins here, you're going to need a font size for the text, no etc. So for example, headings, we need a font size for headings. We need a font size for the body. We need a font size for the subheadings. So let's say subheadings. So as I mentioned the last time, one thing I like about okay, the more you design, you find shortcuts. So the website I use for fonts is called Typeface or Typescale. So I'll share this link. So what happens here is you go in here, you state the font size of your like the base font. You put it up. For example, 16 will be the base. Then you choose a scale. It could be golden ratio, but usually I stick around these three. So major, minor, or third. So we'll go with this one. So what happens is that it clearly states the font size you use. So just go with H1, H2, and P. I'll just get those. So H1 will be H2 and then the body, which will be P. And I think with the people who do like web development and stuff, I think you see where this is going already, because this will now tie in with your styling. So yeah, but then I'm not going to include every single scale. Let's just stick with these two. And then with that said, I'm going to now create like a proper label to accompany it. Let's go there. As I mentioned here, it's 61 pixels, px, subheading 48, px, body 16 pixels, 16 px. Okay, so that covers that. Contrast, right? And then I want to align these to the right. So alignment, as I mentioned, is at the top here. Align left and right. So that being said, we've got your scaling done. So it means anything in between here, I should be able to figure out the other skills. But in a typical brand, I would have done every single skill. But for this case, I just want to stick to these two. And then what I do is I'll go to the other brand guideline, and then I get all the alphabet done. This is just now for, I don't have it here, I have it here. There, I usually do this just so that you see how everything will look. Yeah. Okay. So I see Emmanuel's in, which is good. And then as the base font, but let's scale it up in this case so it's visible to everyone. So that being said, we're done with typography. We're literally breaking down this brand. Yeah. Then lastly, it's the colors, right? So I want to put all this on one page. Then in this case, it will be colors. Now you see how Figma does magic when it comes to colors. So colors. Yeah. And in this case, I do see clearly that you have 3 colors, right? No. There's these additional ones. But I want to show you how you figure out these shades of the blue so that there's harmony. We can double check if there's harmony. So I'm going to do that here. I'm going to put the first one. Let's go with like rectangles instead of squares. The second color, which is the red. And then we have white. Yeah, so these are like, you can see the contrast is already quite loud. The white, and because white on white is not going to be visible, I'll add a stroke and I'll make it like 1 pixel, but I'll drop it from black, I'll make it a bit gray, just so that we can get that separated. Some would add like a shadow, but in this case, we'll see. And then there's this light blue, and then there's this red. So I'm going to extract that as well. Is that. So I like how, okay, these two look like they're related somehow. Okay, so what happened is like I've put a frame inside a frame. That's why this is happening. So just by holding shift, then it allows me to move it out. So as I mentioned, a frame is just like a page. And this one as well. This light blue seems more related to this one. Okay. The only reason why I'm going with like frames instead of shapes, in Figma, a shape is a proper shape. It's like an SVG. While a frame is something you can like manipulate and get like the properties of it. Like it's like a div. For those who are doing web, it's like a div. So I can properly extract those properties from it and use it now later on, which I'm sure I'll try get to before we run out of time. So yeah, the light blue is coming from here. Okay. So that being said, Figma has this tool that they recently added. It's called Color Wheel Palette Generator, this one. So it's loading. Okay, there we go. I've used it for like a bit, but I just don't like. Okay, what happens is, remember we talked about these harmonies, right? But then it's like what they've done with their tools, like they don't clearly state how they are achieving the other colors. Yet if you use this tool, it's called Foundation, which I'd recommend. Foundation color, I think you'll see they'll both open. Here it's just saying the harmony you want to use, right, based off color theory. Yet with Foundation, it actually it takes the color theory from a framework. So in this case, like there's material design, there's, I'm sure you've used some of these at Atlassian material. You see, that's why I prefer this one, because this one properly ties in with the framework, so that if I was developing an Android app, I know that the color palettes I'll find in Android are going to match here. So that's why I would suggest I would use this one. Like usually with my clients, I'll go with this. So like, for example, in this case, as you can see, it's clearly showing us how the scales go. And then it's also handling the WBC, BAC standards, like in terms of color, the right color contrast for people who can't see color, there's these things. I think there's a point in the sessions I was going to touch on it, but yeah, ideally what happens is that not everyone can see purple the way I see purple. There's different types of color blindness. So this handles that. It tells you and it allows you to see how someone else can see your color, the colors that you pick. So you might think red is red to everyone, but yeah, that's not the case. So what's happening here is that I'm going to pick a color from the brand guideline. Yeah, there. It's going to show me all the possible scales. And then again, if I go to the blue, it's going to do the same thing. So I want to extract these, because what these will allow me to do is to handle the shadows. You see, so if it's in black, I'm actually going to use a color from here. And same thing here when it comes to these reds, these blues. If I use the right scale in terms of color, I will always maintain consistency. Whether I'm developing on a website, I'm developing a poster like this. So yeah, that being said, I've clicked on the eyedrop tool and I've clicked the blue. So what I'm going to create is a style. And then I'll create a palette. Yeah, so I need this. What happened? Yeah, I need this. So that's for the light blue, right? Let's go back. I think I'll do the next one a bit slower. I've clicked on the color here, eyedrop tool, I've clicked on the brand, then I've clicked on create style and then create palette. So this thing happens on its own, like in terms of where it's going. It's annoying, but yeah, I've just gotten used to it. It always goes there no matter where you're on the page. So there's that. The next one is the red, same process. Then palette and style. So I'm going to take that. So that's another thing about design. It becomes very repetitive. One thing I wanted you to see is that this red and this one is actually found right here. So that's what I thought this blue and this blue would do as well, because it means I don't need this red. I can actually find it from here, which would be red. I think let's go with 50. It's a bit lighter, so yeah, 50. So that sorts that out. And then this blue, it can only be, but I think this light blue was supposed to tackle that. But depending on your brand, I won't touch that. I'll just make sure that this has its own shades. So yeah, that handles our color palette issue. So these are like your brand colors. Yeah, but then the ones you've created here are now your scales. And in this case, it's a color scales. Brand colors versus color scales. There. So in this case, what would happen now is, oh yeah, the white. Okay, white will give me like a neutral colors as well, but let's just do it. I want you to see. Foundation. We used material. I'm gonna click on white. Yeah, see, it's gonna give me these. So we'll just go with it either way. I'll create the styles and then I'll create the palette. Okay. Okay. So alignment, I'm going to click on these. This alignment is missing in this area, right? So Figma allows you to clean that up. It's called tidy up, or you can distribute horizontally. So I want to tidy it up. It's going to now equally space them, right? Remember, its initial goal is to allow you to create like pixel perfect designs, which can then be translated to web development or mobile apps. But I'm using it for branding and stuff. So it's now just knowing your limitations of the tools you use, which we talked about. So in this case, I've got your brand identity down, right? but I don't have your brand personality. Now I think I want to separate the two. Brand identity is like how you see me, Daniel, but you've never met me, so you don't really know my personality, but you can identify me in a crowd, be like, oh no, that's Dan, because you see my face. But it's not that you know my personality. I can tell you I'm an introvert, I like to be reserved, things like that. You wouldn't believe, but then it's like you've seen my identity, but you don't know my personality. Same thing with branding and design. We've seen the identity of Nike, we've seen the identity of Audi, but we don't know the personality completely. But they've achieved that by associating with a certain type of people. I think we talked about it as well. LeBron James, Tiger Woods, what's the lady, Serena Williams. These are high achievers, athletes, top performance, you know. Now that's how we create an idea of the personality. So how do we achieve that personality in terms of take it up? I feel the way you communicate is like a human. You guys clearly, like here, we are back, you know. It's not like a news type of thing. It's literally like it's like a text, the way you communicate. So I feel that's more like a personal brand, like you want to associate with people on their level. So those are things I would consider in terms of the tone and stuff. So let's try do this part now for social media. So first things first, I want to get these elements. Let's see if I can get them right. So I'm going to do this. Yeah. So what I'm doing, I'm creating a frame that's the size of the logo so that I can put the design in there, and then I've like cropped it. So how did I do that? I literally created a frame, as you saw, a small one, and then because the picture is bigger than the frame, it's going to act like it's been cut out. But for me, I've been able to extract the logo, which is what I want. What do I need else? Like this is the diverse. I need to do that now. So in that case, as you can see, this is the actual page. I'm just going to slowly move it up till I get that. Yeah. I'll clean this up later, but I'm just trying to get the elements down. Yeah, I've got that. I need that as well here. So this would be a close one, but I'm pretty sure we can get it. Okay, that's fine. And I'll just scale it up. So it's there, I've just pressed shift and I've dragged out. That's how I was able to. Okay. So I think for this one, I can just round the corners. So what I'll do, I'll click on the frame, and then if you can check here, there's appearance, there's opacity, and then there's corner radius. So I'm just going to try, yeah, that's what I wanted. Just so that I can kill off that corner there. But now I've got the logo. Then the rest we can achieve on our own. Figma, I think I can get it from somewhere. The rest, as we know, is pop-ins and the icons. So icons as well, I'll show you. So let's create a Facebook template. Shortcut, I'll go to frame, Facebook post there. Let's move this into here. So as you can see, we're going to follow the guides to say top left, top right. I'm going to do the same thing. I want to scale this down. Scaling, I would say a good example of scaling is your brand, like the logo needs its integrity, right? Which you saw in the brand guidelines to say I shouldn't see text written on top of my logo, like something like that. It's disrespectful. It's like someone stepping on you. You've apologized and then they step on you again, you know? It's like you don't do that to a logo. It stands for something, right? So that's why I'm trying to scale this properly so that it has its own space, which I'm going to put there. In this case, the top logo is for the project. I'm going to put it up there. Yeah. Then one thing I've seen that's consistent with Take It Up is that you have the image and then you have a section again for content. So there, I guess it's grouping, right? So I'm going to do that as well. Separate the two. But I'm going to show you in terms of how I use get sort principles before I actually design anything. So There, I break the design into two sections. I'm not considering fonts, anything, no. Just gonna go with layout. So here we spoke about grouping, right? So these three things, 1, 2, 3, right? Here. As you can see, there's alignment. This is like, we're not looking at the design as a whole, but we're looking at this design as its parts. So that's why this is here now. So because I've done that, I'm going to bring this into my design. Shortcut Control K to scale it down, but as you can see, this is just 3 rectangles. Okay? Then I want to add contrast. Yeah. So I'm going to group these, Control G, group, as you can see. So this is like title. Yeah, I'm just renaming my frames. We're going to figure out how this stuff needs to be placed proper. And if it should be at the top here or at the bottom, like we'll get there. But I just wanted us to clearly separate things so that we can see where we're going with this. Then the Figma logo is being grouped here with something. You see Figma logo. So because it's a logo, I'm using this principle here to say, is it not closure, but then it's like, yeah, I think it's closure. Yeah, you can separate it from a set that is not enclosed. So in this case, what I mean is, if I put another rectangle here, you're going to assume that these are the same things, but I want this to show that it's like something else. So I need to change its shape to like that. Then now your mind can literally say, okay, now this is something else. So that's what I was just trying to do there. So because it's a logo, and then contrast again, that's what I want to do. I'm separating this from the title. Then you've got my name, right? And as you can see, its size is different compared to the logo. I'm going to do that again. So the process I'm showing here is usually what I do in terms of UI design, but then it helps when it comes to like tackling a lot of I want to scale this down, and as you can see, I'm just using normal shapes. Yeah, I'm adding contrast by using like a darker color. Now we've got our image here. So there's a few things I want you to see in terms of what will happen. There's like that overlap there. So that already tells me in terms of spacing, that's something it's either I'm doing that creatively or I've overlapped. But let's go with this. As you can see, my picture was going to sit there. So I'm scaling it down. Same thing. Then we've got free training, which is something we added, right? But in this case, I want to ungroup these, right click, ungroup, and you'll see here is that the 3 rectangles are together with the, I don't want that, I want to separate, because this to me is something similar to this. You can see it on its own, but it was grouped with the image. I just need to change its contrast. Okay, I'm only using grays and stuff because okay, in UI design talk about like low fidelity before you get to high fidelity, but I'm going back to this principle. Yeah, that your mind categorizes images and all that. So it's like I feel I can communicate to myself clearly just by looking at shapes like this. Like that's how we see things. So if I can achieve that and I can clearly understand that, oh, okay, no, this is a poster, it means I've done half the job. The end goal will just be to add the words. So that's why I'm approaching it like this. So I'm just trying to break down this part here. We've got a point, right? So, and this to me looks very similar to this. So that's one thing you will notice, that a lot about design is just repetition. but it's knowing when to break the rules. So, but the difference here is that this part and this part are 2 columns. So that's what I want to clearly show here. There and there. So 2 paragraphs and I don't know, it's not bold, yeah, something like that. I want to group this. So I'm holding shift and then I'm clicking on this so that I can select them all. So that solves that. Then last is this section, but I'm not looking at a whole. I'm going to break them down. But then for now, ideally, let's just make it one shape so that you can at least see how much space it will require. Yeah. So that's a very big, it requires a lot of space. So that's what this clearly shows me. So I need to figure that one out. And then here as well. So it's like a smaller rectangle, but I need a reference point. So let's go with that. Social media, I feel, okay, it's part of the comms. So let's separate it though, but it's grouped. So let's maintain where we are seeing it. So I'm just scaling. I'm repeating a lot of what I just showed you earlier. Something like that. So that's that. So social media compared to the other section is quite small. So there. Now we need to figure out how will all this sit, you know. So for example, what's more important, the name of the event, you know, or the speaker? You know, these are always questions I feel we always need to tackle this, but I feel first you need to know what's going to happen at the event, and then who speaks at the event I feel is like secondary. So if in this case it's me, it's my face and my name, I'll put these together. Yeah. And so in that case I want to group them, so I'm just going to move it like there, right? And I'll group it Control G, and as you can see now it's grouped. Yeah. And then we've got Figma as the tool, right, which is this one, which I think is part of the event. You can figure out where it will sit just now. And then we've got this, which is what? The free training, which I also think is very important. So it needs to be up there. And then me, I'm just part of the event, so I can sit somewhere there. And then we've got issues of QR code, date, time, which is very important. People always ask these things. Where is that? It's this. Yeah. And then we've got issues of the topics and the discussions, which I feel follows there. Yeah, so I just need to figure out where this one I can reduce its opacity now, because yeah, we understand there's going to be a picture there, but for now, speaker, should the speaker still sit here? Or okay, I think the topics can come here. Free workshop, Figma. I think, okay, we can do something like that. So what am I doing here? I'm going back to my Get Sold principles. I'm grouping things. Title has been grouped here, but is Figma or the price more important? So I feel, I was hoping people would like ask me questions here, but it's like, this is what's happening in my mind. Picking between what's more important. If it's important, be at the top. If it's not as important, move it down. So that's what I'm trying to do. But topics and stuff should be, I think, close to the top, the name of the event or whatever is going to happen. We just need to figure out which one's more important, or are these things at the same level? Yeah. So I think that should solve it. Yeah, I'm okay with that. So I'm changing the position of this logo. I want to move it up. So yeah, I can achieve that by moving the layers further up. So as you can see here, this is how I tackle layout issues. So if like you're asking me like other stuff we talked about, get sold principle, but it's like, if you just ask yourself those simple questions, like what's more important, what's related to what. I don't have any text here, but I can still communicating something, because I like, you can tell that this somehow is related, this somehow is related, just by using color and contrast. And as I mentioned, that's what the get sort principle is. It's looking at things in their parts. Okay. So that being said, now how do I move from this to an actual design? Oh, but this is also important. Social media, I left it out. So I need to find a spot for it. So I think now that pushes this like back up to the top. The Figma. Okay, no, let's put the price at the top. And then this will move here. In that case, I can move this up a bit. Yeah. Social media stuff here. But then the issue now is there's no alignment. And for me, it's like clearly you can see that something's not aligned. So that's what I'm going to try fix now. I'm moving it down. I can choose to scale it, but I think this is okay. If there were more speakers, this whole thing would have to change, you know. But then in this case, yeah, I'm able to see the price, the tool will be using. This is where the main information will be. It's center, so it should communicate that this is valuable. And then there's a few things that we need to maintain for consistency. You always have this shape, right? And this shape then breaks into the logo. So it means this automatically telling me that I need to fix that. So I want to move now from a low fidelity to a high fidelity. So I'm just going to duplicate that, Control D. Yeah. So I'm just trying to say that you don't really need to see a brand guideline, but you can pick up on consistency of a design. If someone repeats something, you can tell that, okay, that's how they're doing it. And then that's what I'm just using. That's just that idea of, okay, that's how it was done. Let's do it. So we're moving from this to now the proper thing now. So I'm changing the colors. Where am I getting my colors from? Here. But I want to use these now. But then, yeah, we'll use this. So blue 500. So if you remember when I was creating these, I was using create palette and then create style. So what happens in Figma is that you have colors like these, which you have to like pick, you know. But if you don't want to continuously look for those colors, you create styles. So these are now styles. So all those colors we picked, they actually get added to like a style library. What this now does is that when it comes to creating my CSS files and all these, it's generated from here. So now that's why Figma exists. It's able to translate itself from a design to an actual thing because they've got these built-in features. So I want us to use styles in this case. So as you can see there, that's the first part. Yeah, I'm going to move this down. So I'm pressing Control and then the bracket. It's a shortcut for moving things down the layers. But as you can see here on the side, it's the way the stuff is moving down. So I need it there. And then how did he achieve this angle here? So I'm not going to go and start calculating an angle, but my understanding here is that I can just do the eye. I'm just going to double click on the shape. You know, this is a shape. It's not a frame, right? So it's a proper SVG. And then I can now drag there. And if you can look closely, this goes back to the pen tool, which is really what we're doing here. We're manipulating anchor points. And yeah, now that ties back to that first discussion we had, why I felt it was important that we started there, because the pen tool is like everything. If you can master that pen tool, yeah, you can design anything. So as you can see, I'm just drawing a shape and then I'm moving it down. And if it's up here, it's like it's blocking other things. So I want to move it down. I'm going to drag it down. But I need it above this frame. So same thing, I'm going to move this frame up. And then this one will be white. Or I can eyedrop there. Yeah. Or I'm going to click on this shape, go to fill, go to eyedrop. There. So next thing is to scale this to match this shape. If you can look closely, they're not aligned. So I'm just trying to scale this to match. Then yeah, automatically it snaps in. So that's that first part which we've got done. this information. So I find that so I'll use a shortcut. Mac, able to select text from an image. So I was hoping that would work. Okay, there. I'm just gonna select this, right, and place that in here. So text tool T. Yeah, I've got all that information in. Font will fix just now. But as you can see, I'm now using those shapes I drew as a guide. And instead of this, I'm using Poppins. And font color, white. So next part is what? Phone numbers, right? So copy that. Yeah. So that replaces this. Alignment to the right. And then social media we'll get to. But as a placeholder, these are dots. So I'm just going to turn this rectangle into a square. So width 35, height 35. And then I'll add border radius. Yeah, so 35 as well. So that is like perfect round. Font color, white. And you have social media icons, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So what I'll do is Alt and drag. Alt, drag, Alt, drag. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Then, so the only issue I have is like spacing, right? So I'm gonna try make some space for these. Then scale them down. Okay, that should solve that, and this as well. Cool. So yeah, just by, as you can see, I think it's starting to come back. So I think with this, I think when I add this now, it's about balance. I feel that's what's going to push me not to place that there, but I'd rather move this down here now because of balance. I don't know. I think, okay, you'll see what I mean when I get here. Yeah, because this is going to communicate free training. And for me, it's like a design usually guides me in that sense, because I felt the balance was now off with this down here and that above. In terms of grouping, this literally, yeah, it's like I use that feeling of balance. And says, okay, no, this is still related to the event, and it's communicating something relating to the event. Free training, because what would someone be calling me about to find out how much it is? Yeah. So I don't think they'll be calling to find out who Daniel is. Yeah, if you get what I mean. So yeah, that's what made me move this on. So that being said, we can get the topics in, I think, and this we're back with graphic design masterclass. So yeah, I think ideally you can already see that I was able to break it down, realign things, and still communicate with your branding. Yeah. Should I continue, or should I leave this like to someone else, or should I share this so that people can tackle it? But ideally, that's how I'll go about it. And then maybe let's just do the Figma one. Using Figma, you can just find the logo. So what will happen here is that Figma is a tool, it's a plugin, it's called Iconify. So all these tools are free. That's like what I really love about design. People usually create these amazing tools for free, and then when you want these really specialized things, that's when you go and pay. But look at that, they already have the Figma logo. You know, it's like I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I don't need to go to Google and get hit with you copyright claims. It's like these things are already provided. Yeah. The only thing I'll be charging my client for is the time. Yeah. So they're using Figma. Let's see how you worded it using Figma. So here, if you can see, our font size we said was 16. So we're pretty close for the font size. So 16 here as well, 16. Yeah. I'm following my brand guidelines and I'm following them tightly. Okay, and I'm aligning things as well. Then up here, I'm going to say using Figma. Using. So maybe Figma's got its own brand font, so we'll figure that out. But for now, if we're using Poppins, I think you also use bold, right? Yeah, something similar. So I'll do something like that. That there replaces this. But I think I'll keep the shape because now this will be a this is on top of an image. In this case, for now, based off what we've done here, this is on top. So we might need this for contrast. But what I'll do for now is just to group these things. So I'm selecting all and then only selecting this and then grouping it. Yeah. So I've just grouped this part together, but the shape is still on its own. Yeah. I'll show you why I need it, but it's like I'm also thinking ahead while designing here because it might not be visible with the white text if I place an image. So let me extract the last few copy topics, include. So for that one, same thing, yeah. Go Control T for text, topics include. So there's this thing in Figma which is very powerful. It's called auto layout. Auto layout translates to flexbox and yeah, and grid layouts in CSS and all. So for the people who are more into IT, I think this will be more related to you. To say, for example, if I wanted to achieve a grid layout, I can achieve that grid layout in Figma so that when I'm translating it to like code, that's where it will pick up whether this is a flex or a grid. For those who are not in IT, these are like layout problems to say how the text or content align itself when there's no space provided. So let's say the screen is getting smaller, you can make your text like move to the next line, and then as the space gets bigger, it will move that text back up, you know. So with that, what you do is people get confused with this, but it's not really that complicated. So for example here, think of this text. I first need to group it, so Control G. So it's like I'm putting it inside a box, and then this box I'll call it text. Yeah, and then as you can see there's a group, and then inside that there's topics. So like the text and then the actual content. And then I'm gonna go to here on the opposite side, layout, and click auto layout. But I want you to clearly see I'm not relying on this. This is two different things. This is the text on its own. And I'm gonna do auto layout. Now by doing auto layout, you see that the shape changes. So right now it is now aligning in this direction, and that's coming in here. And for those who do IT or web development, this is like flex row. So yeah, and then there's flex column. So that's ideally what is just change it, but you won't see anything happen. But if I was to add more content, you would then see how this affects everything else. But I just want you to see what I'm going to do here. I've put this in a group, right? And then I've applied auto layout. And then now I've got access to padding, yeah, and margins. Now, how do I explain padding and margins? Padding is like you've bought a new laptop, they put all these styrofoam things in there. It's padding. It's to protect your content, which is the laptop. Yeah. So padding is what's happening inside that box, which I mentioned here. It's called a text. So padding is stuff happening within the box. And then margins is now, if I bought multiple laptops, it will be the space between this box and then the next box and then the next box. So in this case, this would be margin, that gap between the two books, while padding is like what's happening inside. So the space between this and, you know, this space they've put around to protect my text. So that's what I would consider padding. So these are just like, it goes also back to those get sold principles like alignment. But then because we're using Figma, it's got a different name. Yeah, but we're still achieving the same thing. Because if you look here, it says horizontal padding and vertical padding. So just padding on this and padding on that. But remember, we're not relying on this shape. Right? But what will happen here is that if I do apply a fill, right now, this text box is transparent. You can see through it. But if I add a fill, it's now white. It seems as if the text has disappeared, but no, I just need to add the color. So now it's like I've added that shape back in. Yeah, I filled it with a certain color. Now, by adding padding, I'm just adding the space inside that box for my text to breathe. Yeah, and as well at the top. So that's how I've tackled that. As you can see, as I mentioned, I'm not relying on this. Now, if we look closely at the original, there's some radius. That goes back to say, I'm not going to put a radius on my text. I'm going to put a radius on my box, like the actual box that's holding my text. So I'll do that here. And I'll just go off the eye, but I think it's about that. Yeah. So even this, I would add to my brand guidelines to say all our border radiuses are 5. Yes, so that I have consistency, right? So that's that. And then it's bold, so I need to add that font weight to bold. Then I just need to add that other part, which is logo design, color harmony. Yeah, typography. So as you can see, this is a grid. So remember we talked about auto layout, but here it's either vertical or horizontal. But a grid is now something that the way it behaves is to say, if there's no space like in this direction, it can move things like down. A good example of a grid I'd say is Instagram. When you post a new photo, will it either go to the top or will it be like the last one that was added, like if I just recently posted? So that's like how a grid behaves. It's like the direction can be both this way or that way. Its constraints are more like the width of something. Well, with rows and columns, it's like you just focused on this direction or this direction. You don't really care about what's happening. If you're focusing on the row, you don't really care about what's going on in the horizontal. And if you're focusing on the column, you don't really care what's going on the row. But with grid, it accounts both of those and then properly aligns your elements. So what I'm trying to say that is, I'm going to use the same text, but what I'll do is I'll ungroup it. So you will see what will happen is like I've removed that box that was around it. Yeah, that's why it's no longer blue. But then what I want is to say that if I put text next to each other like here, how will I make sure that the fourth one goes to the bottom? Now that's where like auto layout is really powerful, because you won't find this type of feature in like Photoshop or Illustrator. It's specific when it comes to like web development, like Figma. So watch, I'm going to click here and click here, and then I'm going to click on auto layout. So remember the other one, I put it in a box and then I applied the auto layout. In this case, I'm actually just going to use the text itself and then apply the auto layout, right? So as you can see, it's like this spacing here says 69. That's like it's called a gap. Yeah. Now this is like the space within this grid, the gap between two elements. We're no longer talking about you putting a laptop in a box, but it's like now those laptops are being shipped from India to Malawi, and the container now has to hold lots of computers. Now it's like you're stepping out of that contents, now you're looking at it like as a container, like the thing that's carrying everything. So in this case, this whole thing in my scenario is the actual thing that is going to carry all this text. So I'm going to copy this. You see where it's going? It's going to the far, but then I don't want that behavior. I want this to go down to like here. So in that case, I'll change the direction from horizontal. Should I go vertical? No, it's going to just move, you see, from horizontal. It's going to move everything vertically. But what I want is the grid layout. So I'll go back to, and then I'll click on grid. So with grid layout or wrapping, it allows me to move this. And as you can see, the text automatically goes down when there's no space. But this is the issue we have now. It's maintaining that 69. So we need to reduce that. So yeah, we used 5, so let's use 5 again. So I need to charge. Okay. So in this case, I'm just going to duplicate this, control duplicate. That's how I will achieve this. But I need a proper spacing, right? So I'm going to click on the container. Let's call this text or bullet points. And then I'm going to just add more spacing. Yeah. So now that's why I've stepped out of grid, not grids, like this. I was just trying to show you how to actually achieve this in terms of real contents. So to fix this, I'm just going to select all of these and change the font size to normal or regular. And then I'm going to put those points that we have here: logo design, color harmony. Yeah. So I'm going to delete that. Logo design, layout design. I'm just cutting these. There's color harmony and typography. Yeah. So as you can see, the bullet point is still there. But if you still want to get a bullet point in Figma, you go here. It's under the typography group. You can add a bullet point there. List style. Same thing here. List style. Same thing there. List style. So then, yeah, we've achieved. So as you can see, it's not like a proper grid. Like it's not aligned. So how do I achieve proper alignment? I'll just double click on that, on the alignment center what, but then when you double click, instead of using a fixed number, it uses auto. So in like CSS, this would be align, or CSS, I mean, you'd say grid layout, like grid layout, then you'd say auto. That's how you achieve that here. So yeah, that's that. So let's see. Okay, so I still want these to align proper. So what I'm doing now is just to increase the size of the actual shape. So as you can see here, the shape itself wasn't the same size. And that's how I'm going to get these to properly align. Yeah. So as you can see, this is another problem we have. If this is on top of an image, it might not be visible. So something you need to consider. But I'll just group these. Control G. And then I think lastly, it's the name of the event. Graphic design masterclass. So same thing here, graphic design masterclass. I'm going to scale it up. Okay. And so here's like the line height. I could have separated these into like two separate text things, but I might have to because there's different colors used, but then just to get it in, that's why. But then let's do that now. So I can achieve the same thing in Figma by just highlighting and then adding the properties. It will work the same. So remember, fill, libraries, I want to use the blue that we created. So the blue is 500. I'm getting that from here. That's the default blue. And then for the red, I'm going to get it from fill, libraries. I'm going to go to 50. Same thing here. Fill, library, 50. So you had shifted the alignment here because of this, but because I don't have that, I want to maintain like a right aligned. Yeah, but then one thing I know I'm missing here is the font weight. So design was made bold to emphasize, right? So semi-bold, semi-bold. Yeah, so I'm just using those shapes as well, just as a guide. Then I can delete this. It's the last part is we are back, right? So we are back. So based off our font, subheading is 48,38 pixels. So I'm going to click on that text, click on the font size, paste. And is it bold? Yes, normal, so regular. Yeah, right align. I'll delete that. Oh no, we need this because you have this shape, and this is something that's also consistent. So in this case, what color is it? Blue. I'm gonna go fill, libraries. The blue is the 500, which is like the base. And then for us to figure out how you got the gray or the black, I'm guessing it's opacity, but I'm gonna use this color I got from white, and then I'm gonna reduce its opacity. So remember, opacity we just said is how transparent something is. Yeah, of course here it just looks like an off gray, but what will happen is if there's anything applied behind it, you automatically like see how the color like bounces off that, and then you'll see it properly. So it's like it's got like a sharp angle. So I'm going to double click pen tool now, and I'm going to move that there. Yeah, so this angle we could figure it out and then apply it consistently here and there, but the only thing I want to do here is just maintain that my spacing here and my spacing here should be the same. So that's all I'm going to do. And then to maintain this radius issue, I'm going to double click on this one, and apply a border radius of 5, just so that I get that angle. I mean the right border radius. Yeah, that's good. This is now on an image. So should the image be on the left or on the right? So for balance, I think it's okay here. But then diverse was sitting on white, so I think that tells me that this content shouldn't be here based off the brand guide or like this current design. It needs to sit closer to this so that I can achieve that white from this. So that's what I'll do. then this means, let's see, does that still work? No. Okay, let's put this back. So it just means the font color needs to be blue, yeah. Libraries, blue, Mona is 500. This should write a line, write a line, write a line, write a line. Okay. Okay. So I'm trying to find balance here. So using Figma, I think can come closer. Yeah, I think that's better. But I see there's so much white space. We could do something with that. That's the only thing that's annoying me here. So I need to figure out. But then anyway, we're good here. Let's just find an image. So for images, Figma also has a plugin for that. You go to manage plugins. It's called Pixels. If not Pixels, yeah, see there. Add completely free images to your designs. All this is like built in. Yeah, the community really does like contribute a lot. That if you ever need stuff, you don't really need to leave Figma. So graphics. Okay. Graphic design masterclass. What says graphic design here? Here you used smiley faces. So let's go with something similar. Something abstract, but it still says design. Yeah, let's go with something like, yeah. Okay. So I know this is like a bit off in terms of the blues are gonna clash. So what I'm gonna do here is just reduce its saturation. Yeah. I think we talked about saturation when we were talking about HSB and all that. So with that, what it allows is to say if I click on this on this shape, it's a rectangle, right? I just put the image in there. Now here I can apply something on top of it, and we can use the brand color. So this blue here, and there's blend modes. So this is something I don't know if people use Photoshop. You can blend colors, so that's what I'm going for here. I think that's okay. See, yeah, something like that. So as I mentioned, we need some type of contrast. So that's why I was trying to reduce the opacity, but I don't think we need that as much. But it's part of your brand, so I need to figure out how best we can make it visible. Okay, so there's that. The image is there, so I can just put my fill. I'm gonna go to, instead of just a color, it allows you to fill an image. Then I can upload an image. So I'm gonna go to downloads, say Daniel. Yeah, Daniel profile. That. And then you added a stroke, which is blue. We can do the same thing. Stroke, which is blue. And you just increase the, yeah. Is there some rounded corners here? So I'm going to use the same 5 that we took from there. Yeah. Then the last part is the name. So with Daniel guy. In that case, bold. I'm not using the shape, just using it as a guide. I'm removing the bullet point, and then I'm adding contrast by changing from blue to white. I need to remove the fill and put white. Yeah. So that's there. I think, where am I missing? Yeah, it's this. You've got layers that you add, so that would be something good to have, so that we maintain that style that you use already. So I think in this case, how do you? Okay, you've got this gradient top of the text. So this, okay, this is what I'm getting. Yeah, something like that. And then on the same image, you add a gradient. So I'm going to add another layer. So that's the nice thing about Figma. You can add layers on layers of layers. And then what you're doing there is that you've got the gradient applied here, which is like a black. So, okay, what this does is like, yeah, this layer here is the one that you have the black gradient applied. And then from black, it's going to 0. So from 100 to 0. So that's how you can achieve that, which is similar to what you did here, but then you placed with Figma. So I think in this case, the only thing missing now is like the event details, yeah, date time, which now all this space we can use for that. So I don't know, is this still in line with your brand, or I have missed it? Where's my name? Figma. Let's put that there. Yeah, we can always add the event details later, but ideally, I think I walked you through how I moved from this to this while still aligning with your current brand, while creating the brand guidelines. Yeah, we okay for today?